Sonny, how you doing? Thank you so much for swinging by CHED.
I'm doing great, Brennan. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know we're here to talk about climbing the mountain, and we're going to get to all the intricacies of that, but you were just at an event hosted by our good friend at the station, Josh Marshall, benefiting the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Center. Would love to know a little bit more about that, what that was like.
Yeah, definitely. And it also benefited Kids Sport Alberta. So that was an event called The Invisible Game, Mental Health in Sports. And, it was to bring mental health to light. In the past few years, that's something that a conscious effort has been put towards. And I was asked to be part of the panel, which I was honored to do. Mental health is something that I'm very passionate about. And, giving back to the community in whatever facet that is always something that I'm willing to do.
And Elliot Friedman was a part of this panel as well. So I imagine it was pretty cool to sort of rub shoulders with him, especially with such a great cause there being the benefactors.
Yeah, totally. I was part of the Hot Stove panel, and Elliot Friedman was the host of the Hot Stove panel as well as the entire event. And it was amazing to see Elliot just, flow through, ask us some tough questions, and we give our raw answers. So overall, great event. There was children's teams from U13 to U18, as well as all the parents. And I would say that they were engaged for the 3 hours, so that was a positive.
Good. That's a long time to keep the attention span of a bunch of kids, for sure. So I'm happy to hear that worked out. Could you summarize sort of your relationship with mental health and why the cause is important for you to give back to like that?
Yeah, totally. I have a educational background in psychology and really digging deep into mental health. I have a few people that I've known in my life that have lost their lives to mental health. So that also adds an emotional piece to it, which I've tried to turn into logic and just try to, educate others, not just in sports, but just mental health in life. And the beauty part about this event was, I think it really shed light on what coaches and players and parents can look for when it comes to signs that they can look for in players, as well as their peers, as well as the roles of organizations and what type of mental health resources they can implore and explore on what they can bring to their training programs, and how that enhances the mental health piece along with the physical, right? We think of sports, the primary thing we think about is the physical capacity, but the mental health capacity is just as important. So things like this event really bring light to that, and kudos to Josh. He was the main driver of this event and really put in a lot of effort to bring sponsors together, and it was a great event overall.
Right on. Really happy to hear that. Sonny Brar in studio with me right now, and I wonder how much of the physical and emotional inspiration maybe piqued your interest in deciding to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in the first place. What was the driving factor in getting you to decide this was something you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk Kilimanjaro. So Kilimanjaro, I think, was just an encapsulation of all things coming together at once. The first thing was, I'll just give a little bit of a timeline. At the start of the year, my cousin Arvin Gill, who we've hiked a few mountains in Banff, I love doing this stuff with him. He's also one of my favorite people. So that's the first thing. He asked me at the beginning of the year, hey, me and one of my friends are looking to organize Kilimanjaro. Would you be interested? And I knew that it was somewhere in Africa. I didn't really know much about it other than that. But then I remember him telling me that it was in Tanzania, Africa. And this was a bit of a eureka moment for me, truthfully. I remember specifically learning when I was 16 years old that Tanzania, Africa, is one of the poorest countries in the world. And why that's important to me is, when I try to do any type of climbs, runs, long bike rides, I've done a long one with Arvin where we raise funds for gastrointestinal cancer and tumor research. I try to tie it back to the people. And I remember when I was 16 learning about Tanzania being one of the poorest countries in the world, I was like, I'm going to help those people one day. And so this just brought that eureka moment, like those neural synapses in my mind just connected. And it was like, all right, so I'm going to be able to help the people that I want to help. I'm going to do this with someone I really enjoy being with. We get to do something super cool, like climb a mountain. How many times can you say that in your life? Mm-hmm. And, I love testing my physical and mental capacities and just creating new physical and mental thresholds for myself. So I was in the middle of also building a house at the time. So I was like, I'll let you know. And then July came around, and I was like, oh man, I haven't confirmed with Arvin if I want to go. And I was like, all right, we're doing it, right? And then I started doing some research on some initiatives that I wanted to help, and eventually landed on malaria awareness. And I was shocked to hear that malaria kills 680,000 people per year.
Wow.
And I think that's just something that us in the Western world, we're just not very familiar with, because we don't have an exposure to it. We think of mosquitoes and we're just like, oh, get these annoying things away from me, right? But there are specifically children and pregnant women are the most at risk, who literally it's life and death for them if they get bit by a mosquito in parts of Africa. And we're not even exposed to something like that. So we landed on malaria awareness, ended up raising $5,000 for the cause.
Wow, good for you guys.
Yeah, so for me, that makes it even more fulfilling. So back to your original question, is that part adds a fulfillment for me of like, all right, this also makes me want to climb this mountain.
So, as somebody that is already in pretty amazing physical shape, what was the preparation process like for you, for Arvin, in terms of getting ready to ascend a mountain of this height? Because it's quite a bit different than just going for a hike in Banff National Park, I imagine.
Yeah, 100%. It's just under 6,000 meters, and the oxygen concentration at the top is 48% that of the base level. So it's definitely something that you have to be conscious of. Like you said, live a pretty physically active lifestyle otherwise. So that's definitely a great start when you throw yourself into something like that a few months prior. But in terms of conscious preparation for it, mine was, did a bunch of stair sessions with a 50-pound weighted vest, had an elevation mask, which mimics from 3,000 to 18,000 feet. So I would say that I was definitely well prepared for the climb, but that takes a conscious effort to be able to say that. As far as Arvin goes, I know he was going almost every weekend to Banff to just, get those reps in and hike mountain after mountain. And I would say both of us throughout the entire climb, we're both very comfortable.
Yeah, interesting stuff, and glad to hear that all paid off for you.
Yeah.
So when was your flight over? How did you get to Tanzania? What is that flight path like?
The flight path was on October 10th. I went from here to Toronto to Addis Ababa, which is Ethiopia.
Okay.
And that's where they have their major Ethiopian Airlines hub, and then Ethiopia to Tanzania.
Gotcha.
And Kilimanjaro, yeah. So the flight path was long. I went a little earlier than the group for a few reasons. One, to tie back to the Tanzania piece of how I wanted to connect. I wanted to connect with some of the people and give back to the people, and I love doing that. And you get, just a real sense of how people live and some of the traditions that they undertake. So ended up connecting with a lot of people prior to the climb, which was probably one of my biggest highlights. Not even the climb itself, was just really connecting with the people. And I also wanted to get the flights out of the way.
That's fair. How long was the flight, or the flights total? How much time did you spend on the bird?
Must have been like 22, 23 hours.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
That is crazy
and
to think about.
I don't like being stagnant for that long, let alone being claustrophobic in a plane,
No kidding. I can't even fathom what that would have been like. But the payoff, right, at the end of it is so spectacular.
Yeah.
So you arrive in Tanzania. Tell me a little bit about getting acquainted, getting your feet back underneath you, and meeting up with some of the people.
Yeah, totally. So I landed there, took like a 45-minute drive to our hotel. Hotel was very nice, and just kind of slept the first day. The second day, I was there alone. Arvin and the rest of the crew from Alberta wasn't there yet. So that's a day that I actually just went for a run. I wanted to go for a run, and I ended up having a full school load of children running behind me. It was like a straight Rocky scene, legit. I had my headphones in, and probably I didn't even realize. I just looked back, and there was like 20 kids running behind me. And then it was really cool. And I bought all the kids lunch. There were some kids who had no shoes. I ended up buying like 20 pairs of shoes for them.
Holy smokes.
And it was a lot cheaper than you think. And but it was such an easy thing to do. And I will tell you, for me, or for us, that's just another day. I know those kids will remember that day for a really long time. And that makes me happy, but also sad at the same time, because it really highlights the scarcity, you know, and just the disparity. Like, I really recommend people listening to go take a trip to a third world country, and don't stay at the resort. Go see how people really live, and it'll give you that shot of perspective. You know, a lot of the streets of Tanzania for me was really reminiscent of our villages back home in India. It was eerily similar. I felt like I was in India, you know, and so I recommend people go take a trip to a third world country from time to time, and you'll realize how blessed we truly are here in the Western world. Like I mentioned, Tanzania being one of the poorest countries in the world. GDP, the average Tanzanian earns, so 67 million people is the population. Average Tanzanian earns $1,200 per year.
$1,200 per year.
$1,200 per year is the average
goodness.
income for 67 million people. So just try to wrap your head around that. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it definitely adds context to some of the work that you were doing there for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
There's many different routes that you can take to the top of the mountain. How did you end up deciding on the one that you guys took? Which one did you take?
We took one called Lemosho route. So this one I'm going to give credit to Arvin Gill and Chandler Guilfoyle. This is where I'll first shout out Chandler. These guys did amazing research going in. I can't take any credit for that. They chose a route where, you know, the statistics are the more days that you give yourself, the more likely you are to be successful. Mm-hmm. The things that you're challenging on your way up is high altitude sickness, specifically HACE and HAPE. So high altitude cerebral edema and high altitude pulmonary edema. So just like, you know, if you're scuba diving, you go up too fast.
Yes.
If you ascend too fast at these elevations, you're more susceptible to experience HACE and HAPE. So you're taking medications such as Diamox, right? But you have to allow yourself to acclimatize at each elevation interval. So we end up taking the Lemosho route, which was a great route for us to take. It was 5 days up, 2 days down. And, you know, there is a 5-day route, but I think the success rate of that one is probably, I think it's around 50%. Mm. And the last thing I wanted to do was go there and get turned down because you're not meeting your oxygen saturation levels. So that is something that I want to credit the guides, is they do such a good job at doing their medical checks and everything. You're checking your SpO2 and your heart rates at short intervals, which is amazing. So that care piece is definitely there. And if you're not objectively healthy to go up the mountain, they will take you down.
As they should. It's against the law there, right, to travel without a guide. You don't get on the mountain without a guide or as part of a tour group, as I understand it. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I found in my research was that on the final day of the ascent, you start that ascent super early in the morning so you can watch the sunrise. Did you get to do that?
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, two pieces. One is so day 4, we did a climb maybe 7-8 hours, and then we went to sleep, and then 9 hours later, we woke up at 11 p.m., and then we started ascending at midnight, which I think is so cool. I love these like added obstacles. Yeah. Because I'm just weird like that. Most people are not like that. It's the other way. But I just love these added obstacles. We had a hailstorm like 2 hours before we were going up, and I was loving it, you know? I just love embracing anything. So, we started ascending at midnight, and we got up there by 6-7 a.m. and you could see the sunrise coming, and you're above the clouds, which is so cool. And the second reason is the clouds piece. So the earlier that you are up there, the lower that the clouds are. So as time goes on throughout the day, the clouds rise, and then you allow yourself to be more susceptible to weather conditions. Right? So we were coming down, and it was, I think we got back to our site at maybe 12 or 1 p.m. and it started snowing and hailing. So that means people were up there on the peak, and it started snowing and hailing up there, you know? So I think that's a credit to our guide group, right? And most guide groups try to do that. They try to ascend at night, but there's a vast difference between the groups. So I definitely credit the guide group on having us do that. And it was just so cool to start seeing the sun come up.
What was that moment like where you get to the top? I mean, I imagine it the way a movie would go, right? You're on top of the world and you're hollering and you're beating your chest or what. What was it like when you got the picture in front of the sign I posted earlier today? Just take me inside your headspace for that.
Yeah, it was a cool piece. First of all, seeing the sunrise and you can see the horizon of the earth, I think.
Wow.
Describing it is one thing, even capturing it in videos and pictures is one thing, but actually being there is another, You can just feel the air and you can't describe it. That's the thing, right? So it's just very beautiful and it just makes you kind of think about life. But in terms of summiting was amazing because, you've worked up to this thing. And for me, truthfully, it's not even about the summit. It's the whole journey that gets you there.
Yeah.
Right? And we talked about the people, right? You connect with the people every single day. They end up becoming part of your family. Like, I was sad to leave, because I'll never see them again, most likely. Mm-hmm. And these people become your family and you're going through the same struggle. And there's a power in going through a short struggle like that over 7 days, because only you can understand it. It's hard for me to describe to my family what we did, It's funny, I told my mom that I was going to Africa to climb a mountain, but I purposely didn't tell her the details. And then I show her a video of some of the things that we did, and she's like, Sonny, this is really dangerous. But I knew she would be so worried if she knew that some of the things that we were doing, I
was actually going to ask you about that, if she knew what her reaction was when you first told her. So you didn't even tell her until you got back? Am I understanding that right?
I just told her, Mom, I'm going to go climb a mountain. So when I say that, she thinks that I'm it's similar to a mountain in Banff, mm-hmm. or like a hill. But I will say, since we're chatting about it, Mount Kilimanjaro, 50,000 people attempt to climb it per year, and there's 10 deaths per year, okay? It's unfortunate, mm-hmm. but very minuscule. So to the point of it being a hill, it actually is truly a really big hill. The challenges to it is the mental piece of getting up this hill. It's not a super technical mountain like your Everest and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just you are battling some conditions with regards to, weather changes. Like we went through all 4 seasons on the way up and down. At the top, it was probably about minus 25. And then at the bottom, it was pure summer, like plus 25.
Wow.
Yeah. On your way down, you go through a temperature difference of probably 30 degrees in 5 hours.
That is phenomenal. Yeah. So you're going through all sorts of different ecosystems as you're doing this, right?
Totally,
I think I read that it's like you see the tundra, you see a rainforest, you 100%. Get a whole bunch of all of this stuff. And yet the biggest takeaway for you is the people that you spent the time with, right?
Yeah, totally. You just see, we talk about the disparity piece and the poverty piece. Mm-hmm. You just see a humility in these people that you're with. And these people, like some of these guides that we're with, first of all, this tourist piece is the biggest attraction for the people of Tanzania. So for them, it's an honor to try to become a guide and a porter and stuff. It's considered a well-paying job, prospectively, in the region. So they're very proud for the jobs that they do. Some of these people climb Mount Kilimanjaro 3 times a month. One of the guides, Godfrey, thinking about him, one of my boys, he's 27. He's summited over 120 times.
Wow. That's ridiculous to think about.
Yeah, that is insane. And just has safely summited, and you could just tell this is his thing, it's his niche.
Good for him.
Yeah.
So is Everest next on your list, or what's the plan from here?
I think the Instagram algorithm is just listening to me every day in these conversations, and I just see all these things about Everest. So it is on the bucket list. I think with Kilimanjaro, it was a timing thing. Everything just had to fall into place. And given my life at the time, it was something that I was able to do. Everest, I see this one picture of, it's similar to Kilimanjaro, and it's like, oh, you summit at night so you could see the sunrise in the morning, right? And I just keep seeing this picture that's in my algorithm, and it's like it's just yelling at me to go do it.
To you.
Know?
The mountains are calling, Sonny.
Yeah, but I would love to do it one day. I'm not in a rush right now. I'm just gonna continue doing what I'm doing, but I would love to do it one day just because I love, one of the beauties about doing things like this. To some people, it's like, oh, you're climbing up a hill, and what do you get at the top? Objectively, not a lot. But what you do get is an appreciation for the human body. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, which we talked about in our mental health talk on Monday. You get a true appreciation for the human body, and we don't give ourselves enough exposure to understand how beautiful our bodies truly are here in the Western world. We live mostly sedentary lifestyles, so it's amazing. Myself too, truthfully. It's amazing to see what the body can do when you push it to its limit. I would say climbing up the mountain, like I said, it's not very technical. So climbing up the mountain is actually more mental. You see how high the peak still is, how high you still have to go. During that night summit, other groups are summiting too. So all you see is headlamps going up the mountain, right? So you look up and I'm like, oh man, I still have so far to go. Yeah. That's where the mental piece comes in. And then I'd say coming down is more physical. You're really worried about your joints and everything, and you're trying to scramble down and stuff. But when you do things like that, my suggestion to the audience is do difficult things, do hard things in life. You create new physical and mental thresholds that you don't know that you're capable of. Right? And you only do that by allowing yourself to be susceptible to that. Otherwise, we just live in the confines of our minds, because our mind is wired to bring us back to a homeostatic state. However, you can beat your mind and create new states, but it's only if you allow yourself the opportunity to do it. I remember there were some times where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, just because of responsibilities that I had here back home. And now, after the fact, I am so happy that I did it. It catapulted me to do another challenge for November. I've been doing a challenge for November.
Good.
And my challenge is to run 300K and raise funds for November. So I'm almost there. I have 2 days to run 21K. So
you'll do it.
Yeah. The plan is to do it tomorrow because I have a day off. So
good for you. Sonny Brar, we are running it right up against the clock. I can see Kellen scrambling over there. That's how good this conversation was. Everything that I hoped it would be. So thank you, my friend, and congratulations on everything that you accomplished with your climb and beyond.
Thank you so much, Brandon.